For a second.
Then you got to be.
Yeah, right.
All
All right, great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. The hour is 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this special board of selectmen to order for a joint meeting.
Yes, so I'll call the Board of Finance, special meeting, joint meeting, to order. Shall we?
We have a-
Right here.
we have a-
Oh,
we have one.
Oh,
We
have one.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. By the way, before we start, an announcement. We are officially, as of this afternoon, I announced to the staff that we're going mask optional. So if you are comfortable taking off your mask, you may do so. If you want to keep it on, do what makes you feel safe. That's fine. I told the press it's effective Monday, but for all practical purposes, tomorrow morning, that's the deal. So welcome, everybody. I'd like to call our first witness. Let's see here. You're there already.
I'm there.
Welcome, Elizabeth Burt, otherwise known as Izzy, our assessor, and the floor is yours.
I guess you could say there's really not been too much change in my budget. We do have a very busy year because it's going to be a reval year. I wanted to give you guys a gift. I wanted to give out just to let you know that we all don't just sit in this office and look really pretty. We actually do some stuff with the work. And this kind of gives you a little idea of what we're doing. I think that's important. I hope I have enough copies. Let me see. I was still the same as it doesn't matter.
I don't share one.
There you go. Wait a minute. I might have had it. We did it. So we have a lot of things that we do in this office, and I think it just doesn't even get noticed for the kind of work that we do. Income and expense reports, grand list, motor vehicles, personal property. So that kind of gives you a little idea of what we do in our office. We have an increase this year, so we're a little worried this year because the motor vehicles, we've seen about a 28% increase of motor vehicles because of the demand, supply and demand. So I think our July is going to be very difficult this year with taxpayers, so I expect to see that. Real estate about a 1.25% increase, and we've seen about personal property, about a 4% increase, but like I said, the motor vehicles is going to be a big one. Overall, about a 3.39% increase from last year. Does anybody have any questions?
Question, I'm sorry.
Yes.
How much is collected, just a rough number in vehicle, motor vehicle taxes a year?
That would be tax collected to tell you how much is collected.
Okay, so you, as an assessor, you don't know what the value probably is?
I know what the value is of my motor vehicle. My motor vehicle, I have 17,619 vehicles this year coming up. Last year was 17,200, so we went up about 400 cars. My assessments, because I work with assessments, my assessment for the motor vehicles for last year was 166,536,060. This year I'm at 214,446,400. So the hard thing is I work with assessments more than the tax dollars. By my calculator.
So it would be 32,000.
32 mils, yeah,
32,000 per million, right?
Right.
Is that correct?
yeah, 32.
Bill out 6.8 million.
Okay.
Because it's like 7 million.
6 point what?
9 rounded.
So we will see a big increase in the motor vehicles assessments, which will affect tax dollars this year. Real estate, we gained about only 5. Most of the big work was the summit, and we had mostly total. And they're pretty much done at this point. Let's hopefully they can find some more property and get some more buildings going. So that we'll see those, the numbers slow down a little bit. But I do think that people have been home because of COVID and they're definitely putting money into their homes. They're realizing when you're staying home all day, you realize you want to fix things in your home. So that's been good too.
So what's your projection for the total growth of the town?
The total gross in Grand List is an increase of that's tax dollars. Final total increase last year was 2,142,000,380. This year's 2,171,146,050.
Okay, is that, can you say percentage or could you say those numbers again?
Okay, sorry. Last year final total of our grant list was 2,100,042,380. This year is 2,171,146,050.
So you would take roughly 70% of that.
That's the assessed.
That's a sense.
But that's not all, the 71 million increase wouldn't be all be in like real estate, right? That could be.
That's in all three. So real estate, personal property, motor vehicle.
400 cars.
So,
And then we would take with exemptions already in there. So that takes out my exemptions and that's my net.
Are you trying to get the tax dollars, right?
trying to get.
So,
Okay.
Thanks,
That's what I'm getting at.
do you have, is the,
I don't have the prints of that. I can get my calculator.
so the, tax dollar difference based on real estate and personal property, based on the same mill rate, is
The increase.
794,603, 800,000.
So it's actually lower than it's been in the past couple.
Well, last year was, for just real estate and personal property, was 782.
years.
Motor vehicle,
Is
depending on what the governor does with the mill rate, is 1.5 million.
So it could be 2,300,000 depending on where we go with our mill rate for motor vehicle.
And how many, what does each million represent?
A mill is worth like $2.1 million,
So for every 1 million, 2.1 million.
about roughly.
Thanks, bud. Thanks.
Yeah. Also, we hired MTS, and I know that I even talked to Nick one day about that, so that's been very beneficial. I wanted to go over that quickly. Let me find the paper. I have it here. Sorry. Go on a little bit down this year. Last year, for the first year, on the 18, 19, and 20 grand list, we had total assessed for 788 additional vehicles that would be out of state, non-registered, out of town. That gained us about, I mean, it's not huge, but we keep half of that goes to MTS. So we gained about 81,577 additional dollars. But we also gain in the future because now they've registered and we'll keep that money going forward.
Does the company keep that money going forward too?
No, because once they get it, then we add it. Either we get it by registered or personal property.
Okay.
And then we get the whole
They
percentage.
did a part of the first year.
And then
No,
it's-
they get something.
So they get 50% plus a $50 fee per plate. And then once after those 3 years, then we get it.
And how many hours is that company spending in our town in a year?
I can ask, I don't have that off the top of my
What
head.
do they have, a plate reader or something?
They have a
right?
plate reader.
they're driving
So they go
around.
by usually at nighttime, anywhere from like 10 o'clock at night till early morning hours.
Was the 81,000 our half or was that?
Our half.
That's our half.
So
So that's good.
Yeah.
And then we get a few, so, you know, we keep them.
Better than zero.
I've personally seen cars change, after the conversation you had with Nick, and it's a good feeling as a taxpayer. If we're paying our share, it's good to see finally those cars that have been out there, getting away with it, or, out of state getting away with it.
Out of state and
Yeah.
out of town, I was
Out of
surprised
town,
at the
it's
out of
going
town.
somewhere, but, right.
Yeah.
The irony is that there are more people from within Connecticut than out of staters.
Yeah.
It's just the New Yorker plates really get to you, you know what I mean?
But yeah, we have
Well, 'cause
actually,
they moved here because taxes are cheap,
well, I mean, they have found Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Vermont.
I didn't hear any in Alaska.
The last ones were Tennessee.
No, Alaska.
Oh, no, Alaska.
I was feeling better if you said New York twice. Because they drive different.
Is this document on a Zoom document or something? I think because Deline is.
That one, I'm not sure if that one, if I gave it to, Brad or not, so, but I can put that up.
Well, because Deline is doing it remotely, and I thought that she could, but
I could just have, I don't know, Brad, is that one of, I don't know if he's got that one, but I can add it tomorrow.
Is it called the assessor's office duties?
Yes,
Yeah, so it's in open doc.
use that, oh, it is.
okay,
It's in
okay.
open doc.
I know we talked about adding it, but I don't know if we ever got. Yeah, good.
Thanks, Cynthia. I think I found it on OpenGov.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, that's the question.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Best so far, right, Brian?
Was that the best so far? Because I heard it the other night.
By far, you're the best.
I did better than this.
There's room for improvement, everybody. Well, that didn't take much.
All right, next I would like to welcome up Eileen Earl, Director of Parks and Rec, and you chair of the.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's no chair, that's good. I'll just stand back here. No, I'll introduce Eileen, as the newly elected chairman of the Bethel Parks and Recreation Commission. You know, we're excited to see things get back more to normal this year, and like a lot of people, you know, we see a lot of pent up energy, so we expect our classroom, ball field, sports, and all that stuff to be fully used in the coming year. Eileen, take it away. Lou Valenti, I'm the new chairman.
Yes, he's related to that other guy.
Yes.
Don't hold that against me.
He's one of my favorite people. Okay, so before we get into like looking at accounts, I just kind of want everyone to kind of think about what you think about when you think of Park and Rec. You think about that it's a service that provides fun and activities and exercise, is a service that provides a quality of life. Gets the community involved in different things. You can take a hike, you can walk your dog, you can have learning experiences, you can have development of skills, and it's all part of what my department does on like 24/7 time frame. So it just wanted you to think about outside of numbers of what we do, that we affect adults, children, pets now with the dog park. You know, we service a lot of different people and a lot of different parts of the community. So that was kind of like my spiel. Short enough?
Yep, you did good.
So if we want to just look at the accounts, you can see that the salaries are up quite a bit, and that's union salaries, that's part-time salaries, which minimum wage is going up in July and again in June. So it hits us both twice this coming fiscal year. So that's all those expenses. Office expense went down. Maintenance and supplies, of course, we all know the cost of supplies to do your things at home as well as your own jobs have gone up. So we have additional costs there. We've had additional costs for porta potties, for dumpsters, for extra cleanings for those areas, as well as our fertilizer, our seed and playground mulch and things like that. The contracted services, I kept everything the same with dues and education, clothing allowance. Contracted services just went up a small amount, which is leaf removal and a little bit more prep work at the police station. It's gonna cost us a little bit more to do that. And then our park maintenance and repair, we kept the same. And then our program account, we went up about 12,000 because we anticipate, we have several new programs that we're running that are really taking off. And we expect next year they'll even grow more. One of them is a after-school sports programs that we're utilizing the 3 schools, and we're utilizing teachers to run them. And the one at Johnson was twice a week, and now it's 3 times a week. And that's about between 20 and 30 kids at a time taking that program. So we feel things like anything after school will start to grow again, and keep that up. So that's why that's up. Our income is up as well. It's in your open gov, but it's
Okay, I'm back. I'm there.
$1,138.
Are you coming home this weekend to go to Emily's party? It's gonna be Emily's birthday. Yeah, we'll buy her a present. Would you like to give her a Barbie?
Good birthday.
Yeah.
Mary, so I don't know if you have any questions or we're waiting to.
Yeah, nope, you're good.
So you said your income was up, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's up, yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Because when Bob Gilmore was here, he was talking about the different contracted services, and he talked about leaf removal. So do you contract separately from,
The only contracted for leaf removal is the police station.
okay,
Everything else my staff does. My staff
Yeah, I'm
does
just
all
saying,
the
because,
leaf
you know what I'm
removal.
saying?
No,
Because-
you know, they gotta take the weeds away, that's in the transfer station.
Mine is like, people actually have to rake the leaves and pick them up.
Never mind.
Yeah.
I get it, never mind.
Eileen, in your budget, do you have any outside plow contractors?
No, that gets paid out.
How's the police department?
Fairfield County plows the police
And that's
department.
in
That's
highway department?
highway department for snow removal.
So out of the 33,000, how much is that for the police station and contracted services? If you have that breakdown, what you spend on the contract of 32,000.
For the police station, it's about 11,000 of that 32. And that's like mowing it, and
Fertilizing all that.
no, fertilizing is in like my one out of Billy. Mulching the flower beds, leaf removal, spring cleanup, that kind of thing. It's all incorporated in that amount.
But snow plowing is not in the 11,000.
No,
I just wonder, what are some of the other properties we contract?
that's the only one we contract to do mowing.
So what's an example of, just because I really don't know what contract is for, like what.
Well, what's in there, is, we pay I guess the cemetery association takes care of mowing several cemeteries. And the town pays $5,000 towards South Street Firehouse, the South Street Cemetery. So we pay the cemetery association, does it cost more than $5,000 to do that piece of property? But they are the ones responsible for finding the contractor and doing it. So that's been an agreement that the town has had. There's a lease for a lawnmower in there and a truck lease. And then the police station mowing and trimming. Those are the 4 items that fall under that.
So roughly 16,000 for the cemetery and the police station, and the remaining 17,000 is for lease of a lawnmower and pickup truck.
Yes,
Got it. And is it leased to own? Is it like a 5-year
Yeah,
lease or something?
yeah.
So you own it.
Yep, yep. The truck is like, we can own it or return it. The truck is
It's
not.
just a straight lease, right?
The truck is a straight lease,
It's
but
just
the mower
it's
is not.
one of the big trucks. It's just they're like pickup truck.
It's just finance. And they last 25 years, so we're good.
The lease to own is the mower. The lease for the truck is a 3-year lease, and then we decide in 3 years.
So so up in the schools, if Fairfield County is doing some other landscaping, that's in the school's budget, not in your
That's
budget?
in the school budget, yep.
Eileen, could I just ask a question? I'm behind you. Sorry. I was just wondering, of the 12,000 that you're adding for new programs, what do you expect that to return in terms of additional revenue?
It's usually about 25, between 20 and 25%. Above.
Additional.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
I'm sorry, just clarification, so if we spend 12, you're gonna generate 18.
The goal is
In a
to
billable
generate
sale.
20 to 25%.
Okay.
Yeah. And some do, some don't, but some do really
If
well.
the majority do, then you're. in good shape.
Like we're planning, the new one we have this spring is we're working with golf and running golf lessons, and I've had like 5 calls and we haven't even had registration yet. So I think programs are gonna go, keep growing, and people are gonna want, and our population has grown, and I think more people are gonna want more services and more programs.
And they pay for themselves and they generate more
generate
income
income.
to offset other expenses.
What percentage of your employees are union?
There are 7 of us that are union employees.
Not good.
Well, there's 6 union, no, only 5. 4 maintainers and the secretary in our office.
Because, I mean, this is just curiosity, are we obligated to hire union people? Is there a certain kind of quota you have to have, percentage?
For a union job, oh.
Right, like, are you required to hire only union people?
Do they have to be part of the union?
Right, do they have to belong to a union for you to hire them? Or what
If
makes the
they're-
decision to hire from the union?
Well, if it's a union position and someone within, this is my understanding, and I could be wrong, but if it's someone within the union and I have a union position, that person usually gets first preference on that job within the union.
Well, because I guess I'm gonna ask this another time, because I don't quite understand the union position, like what would qualify as a
What it
union
is,
Well,
position.
so if we have 40 police officers, 39 of us are in the union. If one of the police officers leaves, it's a union position.
Got it.
Everyone has to, they're not union members when they come on,
They
they're
join.
union members when they get here and they join the union.
It's the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah,
It's-
it's not
it's
like
all
You
union
hire the
starts,
person and
then
then
they
they
come in,
join the
they,
appropriate.
correct, that's who represents the.
I understand.
And that's why you can't hire 2 part-timers
Yeah.
to fill a union position, because that's what they.
Thank you, so I was gonna miss okay. I understand.
We're gonna let you off easy.
If there was a-
Yeah, this is easy. And by the way, you're the best one.
So.
So far. By far the best one.
Especially so far.
Which I have to see you now, so.
We talked about that.
So you left.
I don't feel bad, you just never want to go first.
Building inspection is 1.
Oh, okay.
All
Oh,
right, oh, you want to
Oh.
sit back on your,
we're
okay.
getting rid of Eileen, okay.
I'm fine.
All right,
She's
so
back
that's
in
it.
us.
I always, the next one might be interesting, right?
I'd like to call up, Doug, our chief building inspector, out of the department, Christopher Baldwin,
It's not as good as it is.
I guess I don't.
department number
Fire and
185.
tie.
All right, I guess it's segue to the building department.
Building department remains extremely busy.
So who would have
20,
thought
sorry,
the
20.
building department would have been so busy during the pandemic? So some of the statistics that are in open gov, and just to kind of highlight a few things from that, we had 1,327 applications that were submitted this year. Some of my numbers show fiscal year, but just in a 1-year period, we've had a lot of applications coming through. That's averaging about 110 applications that we have to process and look at per month. We're averaging about 2,400 inspections in a year. And so quite a few inspections that are occurring throughout the year that we have to provide to contractors and homeowners. We received an average of 2 to 3 complaints per month for housing and building violations. So that means we've got to go out, we've got to investigate what the violations are, follow up on them, do some research, and it takes a lot of time from the building department monies and resources involved. We also have after the fact permits that need to be issued. There were a lot of homes that were sold and transacted through here. And what happens is the sale is held up until all violations, open permits, sometimes they find that there was work done without permits. The attorneys get involved and we have to investigate and we have to close out those permits. And so that isn't included in any of the permit counts that I have in my calculations, but those are other permits that we have to close out, issue certificates for. And we also care for and manage, on average, about 100 title searchers that come through the office. So they search the files, and that also requires resources within the office to buy the files. And recently, we've gotten a lot of FOI requests regarding large amounts of paperwork that needs to be either scanned or provided in those FOI searches. So that puts a strain on.
What kind of requests are they? Again, what kind of things they would request, like,
Whatever's in the building file, it could be what permits were issued, what violations might be still in the file.
Let me just color it a little bit, because it at times is a huge problem. There are companies out there that utilize the FOI laws to harvest data that they then package and sell. And we've had some real fights with them because we've said, no, we're not gonna, I mean, we were talking about like days of digging through files to get all
I'm
the
kind
stuff.
of
that they
thinking, I'm
got.
just thinking this department didn't seem like a likely target.
Oh, no, yeah,
But
you
point,
can-
but,
yeah, you can go online, you wanna know about a piece of property, you can buy that data and they can get it for free.
yeah.
Yeah.
By making people like Chris and staff not do their job and just dig through files.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're data mining, trying to get what information they can.
Yeah.
And we've had some exorbitant requests regarding that. So the needs of the department, I want to highlight is that is the additional load of inspections, application requests, permits that we issue, there's enforcement that we have to take care of. And with the COVID, I've been trying to work within the parameters of what we have in our office, but construction has continued to grow, as you can see in some of the numbers that are there. I'm required to spend a major portion of my time also in working on implementing and bringing the department into the 21st century with software and so forth. And then also too, we're going to be taking on scanning of the documentation. Also, and those are going to be responsibilities that will fall upon the building department. There are additional things that will have to be handled. An additional inspector would help with the reviewing of plans and increase the turnaround time for a lot of the permits. We're hardly meeting the statutory requirements. We're struggling to meet those requirements, and if we had additional help, it would be a huge help to both the contractors and homeowners, because if we increase this turnaround time, that means money for businesses. They can get started faster. The homeowners won't have to juggle contractors. So it delays cost businesses and homeowners. We're also averaging about 2,400 inspections per year. That's an average of 10 inspections per day, just within the 250 working days that we have. So
What does that compare to the past few years, say?
It's increased substantially, yeah. So every day I walk into work, on an average, there's 10 inspections that have to be done.
Per inspector or for the department?
Just for that day. So if there's multiple inspectors, you divide it up, but if there's 10.
So you've got a couple inspectors, you're talking about 5 inspections a day?
Yeah, every day. But
And what's
then
the average inspection time? You're not driving to New York, it's in Bethel, right?
it is, and it depends on if it's a commercial building, it could take an hour and a half. If it's a residential, it could take up to 45 minutes. Other inspections can be as quickly as maybe 20 minutes. It depends on, what we're inspecting and what we're looking at. And there's multiple inspections for each permit. So there's quite a few there. There's the travel time, and so forth.
And then keep in mind that he has to go back to the office and still keep up with the plan reviews. That has to be done for certifications.
And then in our new system that we have also, the software system, we're keeping better track of what inspections we're doing so that I can better break out where we're spending our time in doing these inspections and what permits are being issued.
And so, Chris, not to, I mean,
Yep.
we're going bit by bit. I mean, we talked about improving the technology to make the work go faster.
Yes.
And you've been working on this for a couple of years now.
Mhm.
But so we gave the technology, but then you still want another employee also.
Correct, because of the workload. Today, I was looking, going to different towns, and Bethel has an increase by almost 10%. If you look at all the towns in the state of Connecticut, there's only 2 other towns in the whole state of Connecticut that had a greater increase. So Bethel had a huge increase in population.
Do you have, are you guys salary? Or, is there an overtime line in your budget that you guys can spend an extra hour a day, 2 hours a day?
I'm an exempt employee, so
I'm sorry?
I'm an exempt employee.
So,
But the others in my department would get overtime, and they have worked extra hours this year.
let me add a little bit to that, to your question. You know, the system that Chris has been working on for a couple of years is running in his department, and how about you've rolled it into land use, and then we're working on health.
Correct.
The part-time budget would have been blown to pieces without that. Just to give you an example, January 1 to May 1, 2020, they issued 85 permits. January 1 to May 1, 2021, they issued 500 at the same time, and they couldn't have done that without that software. But to Chris's point, even though they have this technology to increase their office efficiency, inspections in the field are, it's a man-hour type of a job. If you're not physically in the office, it doesn't matter if you have the technology or not. You still have to get that done.
Right.
Chris, I just want to start, I have a great deal of respect for you and your department. I've been, working with your department for many years. Brian, you guys do a wonderful job. And out of most of the towns, I would say you are one of the most user-friendly building departments in the area. And that's credit to you, Joe, everyone, and Joe and who's in your department. My only question would be, I believe government should be open and accessible at all times. That's my personal feelings on it, at all times. So if you got this money for the additional manpower, would that mean you would reinstitute that the office is open to the public 5 days a week? Would it allow you to keep the office open where, certain days like now it's not closed?
Yes, because my goal is to be in the office more to help people who come into the office and expand those hours.
So you would be able to go back to normal business hours?
Yes.
Thank you.
What are the business hours?
Yeah, the office is closed if I walked in there?
You have to make them.
Yes, it's not closed, they're.
Like certain days,
2
we
days,
just walk in when we
2 days.
need something, you can't do that right now.
But that's the goal, right? That's the.
Right, the goal would be to be open
Right.
and accessible to the public at all.
Right, because the plan reviews, a lot of the in-office work requires our time to sit there and get through that. One of the critical things is reviewing the plans and issuing the permits. And if the contractor or the homeowner is waiting for this, it's a delay, and it really impacts the town.
We all know how overworked you are. It's just, for me to support something, I just want to know that we're going back to normal
Yeah,
business
and
now.
if you have any questions, please
Yeah.
ask me.
Well, that, you're looking
Once
to
it's up.
make the part-time a full-time job, so you're
Right.
actually asking for another half of a person again, it's not a.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, not quite, like, Chris, this is something, because you're trying to, right now, some of your part-timers are inspectors and some are office staff. You're willing to give up all your part-timers across the board to get the inspector, so it's not a $75,000 ask.
Right, yeah.
Ms. Beers.
So would your inspector be able to do the part-time? I am 100% on your side. So I want you to know that as a business owner that has gone through the process of having to deal with building inspectors, and this, you know what I mean, it is there is nothing more frustrating than not having the support from building and from having enough inspectors and enough people in that office. Because every day that I had to wait for a stupid little plan to come through that was approved or reviewed or whatever was time and dollars, and you can attest to that as well.
I was gonna say,
I think my plans are something, I think there's something that we follow for a successful build
Some of that.
coming from the building side. just
So
letting you know.
I thought you had something pending, what you were talking about, Christie.
And I feel your pain.
And that's why I'm saying, like, I support this 100%, and I just want to make sure that you are covered. I mean, I even know a bunch of people that are trying to open businesses right now, and it's frustrating for them to not have, you know, and I think that's something that people don't understand, is that when we start to nitpick and ask these dumb questions of like, oh, hey, well, the office isn't open every day.
I don't think they're that dumb of a question. When someone walks in and wants to put windows in their house and they see the door locked, they're gonna walk out and put the windows in their house. So it's not a dumb question.
It's not a dumb question.
Thank you.
But it is to question why it is that he needs it is because we need him to be open. So we need to give
It's our
them-
job to ask them questions.
Right, but we also need to be able to give them the
Well,
support.
we
that
will
they
do
need.
that when we deliberate, like after you go through.
And Nick, just in response to your comment too, we do have the online permitting process, so that's available to people.
Some dumb contractors don't use online.
You guys can all thank me for your books.
You got Bluetooth in your truck, so you.
I know, I just got moved in my truck today, it's amazing.
So I have a real quick question. With respect to the part-timers, what exactly are we replacing? How many part-timers?
I have 2 inspectors, and to be honest with you, I had to drag them out of retirement to help me. So I could lose them at any time, but there are 2 inspectors that are part-time. One focuses on a lot of the solar inspections that have to occur. He's an electrical inspector. And then the other one is just licensed in residential, so I can give him some of the residential inspections. And that takes some of the other inspections off of myself and Joe. My focus is to be in the office more, to manage things and get things moving along quicker and more efficiently.
And do you have staff in the office other than those 2 inspectors? Are you giving?
Yeah, and
them
I have an administrative assistant in the office too.
Oh, Chris, I was looking at the first page, the proposal part of the open gov, and you did some value projects and construction values, but they just go back to 2018 to 2019. And I was just wondering if you had current information.
Going back further,
Well, not going back further, coming soon, more recent, like 2019, 2020.
Is attachment, the 5 year old piece. I don't know if you'll do that one. I'm opening it now.
I opened some facts regarding.
yeah, there's one that's where it's got the fiscal years at 2017 to 2018, 2018.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I just didn't see anything for 2019 to 20. Because the estimate is for 2018, 2019, I'm just curious,
Yeah, so
because it's not even finalized, so.
It's one of the attachments, Cynthia, has
I'm looking and I just downloaded it.
one called 5 year building report piece.
Okay, is that on the expenses one?
Now, it should be in the proposal on the bottom.
yes,
Okay, building inspection, and I'm not gonna do that for time, but I do have some facts regarding, that's what I have.
yeah, and I have a further breakdown of those years too.
Okay, well, I'll find that document somehow.
Yeah. This is probably a question for Brad. Brad, obviously inspections and permits, there's a fee to it. Could you give us a comparison? We heard inspections are way up, so for my notes, just, what a typical year before the pandemic generated in fees
Yeah, so
versus the most.
the last full pre-pandemic was like 350,000.
Yep.
The last 2 years have been over 500,000.
Okay, so it's generated about 180.
Yeah.
So his department generates revenue, is what you're saying.
Yes, even with a new hire, if they went back to the pre-pandemic 350, they cover their operating in the 180 account.
And then Chris, this is for you. The last time fees were increased as a department, was that 3 years, 4 years? You know, how far off were you as far as raising fees for different things in the office?
I periodically raise fees based on construction value, but to be honest, I haven't raised them in probably 4 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, but just so people know, like, when we talk about fees, to build a new house, you're looking at $4,000.
Oh, I know. Oh, I
And
know.
that's not including zoning, health, and all the other fees. I mean,
But you
well,
know,
because my predecessor always talked about raising fees, and I always
Yes, I was
got
gonna
right
say,
to
he
the
was-
bills because I know what the fees are.
And no, the question wasn't about raising fees and generating more income. I just wanted to know when did the last plateau?
Where they generate more income is as the value of the houses go up. That's the
Because it's a percentage.
Yeah, as materials go up, they make more money on the fees when you build now. Because
Yeah.
they're assessing the total cost per square foot is there.
I'll be honest with you, there's so much fluctuation right now. I'm kind of seeing what's happening with construction value. So I'm not really messing with the numbers until I see what the true number really is. And then also too, I foresee some more commercial coming online. And with commercial, those have very high construction value to them and would increase fees coming into the department also.
Great, thank you.
Good job, Chris.
Chris, I just have one more quick question. You talked about state statute. What is state statute on reviewing drawings and getting back to the applicant?
Once the drawing comes in through the building department, we stamp date it, we have 30 days.
30 days.
We have 30 days.
And what happens if it goes beyond 30 days?
Why would you just don't let that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, the only caveat to that is if we get a set of plans and we reject them because of the
It starts
deficiencies,
again. the clock.
it can restart.
I'm all set with my stupid questions.
I'll be submitting a stupid set of plans.
Sending a stupid email.
I'm not-
We know how Bobby feels about her contract.
Well, I'm not
It's
going
funny,
around.
my kids yell at me if I look at it.
A stupid.
I don't know how we read those.
Thank you,
drawings.
I won't be shocked.
Save your zeal for the delivery.
Great job.
30.
Yeah.
I want to welcome Megan Albert-Kazadian, our social services director. Welcome, Megan.
Okay, so Nick, I know last year you had asked me a couple of questions about, being more specific about the households that I work with. So I have some numbers and I did it based on the food pantry because I have the most participants in the food pantry. Currently, we have 156 households. Last year, at the end of the fiscal year, we had 194. The people that make up those households are 360 this year. 107 of those households are renters, 49 of them are owners of homes. 14 new households this year. Compared to last year, we had 38 new households. This is the biggest discrepancy that I've seen over the last 4.5 years that I've been here. We've had 21 people that were on the food pantry last year that graduated, and that's very rare because I think that with COVID last year and people out of work, so we're seeing a little bit of improvement in that area, and the needs are decreasing. So last year, 88 households were made up of only one member. 39 were adults aged 18 to 59. This year, we have 70 one-member households, 20 of which are aged 18 to 59. And the two-member households are 34 last year, 25 this year. And 10 of those last year were one adult, one child. 6 of those this year are one adult, one child. So that the one adult and 1, 2, 3 children make up the majority of the households that utilize the food pantry. Another thing that I noticed, when Mary and I both noticed when we were doing the back to school program, we were wondering, where are the kindergartners? I know Dr. Carver has seen an increase in the children. Chris was just saying the increase of the population in Bethel, but the households that need assistance with young children are decreasing. I think those households, those families are moving out of Bethel, and people with a little more money are moving into Bethel. So last year there were 6 kindergartners, and this year we only had 3 kindergartners. So I noticed that up until about 6th grade, they are less this past year than they were last year. Just to give you a little information about the households that I work with. I'm seeing around the same amount, probably about 15 with the holiday gift giving program, back to school, Easter basket program, it's within like a 15 child difference in the ranges over the last year. The evictions, which I thought we would have a lot of last year, really were on hold still because of COVID, but we've had 3 evictions this year thus far, and the marshal told me this week that they're rolling in. So out of the evictions this year that we've received, the notices for 3, there were 2 evictions have taken place and only 1 required a storage unit. And last year there were 3 evictions, they all took place and there was only 1 storage unit required. Utilizing, I appreciate the assistant hours that you all have provided and allowed me to have. We have 500 hours, and we've utilized about half of them, 244 and a half thus far. We're still getting grant monies from the Alice Enrichment Program, which has been a great help with park and rec activities or different enrichment activities. We've received 2,500 for the summer, fall, and last winter, 2021, we received 3,250. That during that time frame, we were able to help 16 children. They participated in gymnastics and sports dome, cheerleading, the YMCA theater, art programs. We received so far this year $6,088 in donations. Last year, we received $12,665 in donations. The school, back to school program, we literally met every single need on that list. This year was the first time that I was able to accomplish that. And we used about almost $6,000 from the community council to make that happen. Even those heavy yoga mats. So this year, I'm so excited. We got something out. The police, if anybody has a scanner, the police are so busy, nonstop. And I asked, when I was doing the back to school program, I asked for contributions as well to get gift cards for the police department. So when they're dealing with someone in a crisis, or the person runs out of gas, or they're just having a bad day, we got $1,235 of gift cards to the police, and we'll do it again if that's necessary this month. So you'll see in my request, I am requesting an additional $2,861. That's really mostly for staff. What the health department and I are seeing is a uptake in, I would say, serious, significant cases, extensive cases in the community where the health department probably gets 20 calls a day. And a lot of them are extensive where they also utilize, we work hand in hand. So I'm asking for $2,000 more in emergency expense and $1,000 more in salary, so that if we need an expert in the area, such as hoarding or bed bugs or mental health issues, we can use that expert to come out. Because a lot of times what Laura and I see is we go out to the home, we can educate them on different mental health services that are available, but it's very rare that somebody will, one, acknowledge that they have an issue. They probably don't realize that there is an issue. One gal that we went to visit who had bed bugs called them her friend. So, and she's not motivated to see mental health professionals. So if there was an expert with us that could come out with us and those, have that contact and they can really work with them better. So that's where the increase is. And it's in the emergency because,
it might be used for that or just any emergency that comes up. Does anybody have questions?
Man, I gotta say something. I think, I don't even know how to speak anymore in this country we live in, but in this town hall, it is so good to see so many women running this town hall. I really, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, I'm a creepy old white guy.
No.
I'm not- it's just-
Look, I think
It's just unbelievable.
It's always been that way, Nick.
I gotta be able to hear you at home.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No questions?
I have no question.
I adore you, you know.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, no, am I the best
Oh,
one?
did you?
I don't have questions. No, it's okay.
I don't want to hurt Chris.
I think the non-governmental organizations, is there a list somewhere which ones we work with?
Yes, there is. So
Is it open gov or is it?
You know what would be great, Megan?
I do have it. I could email,
It should, Dan, it should be an open gov. If it isn't, we'll put it in. It's like regional hospice,
Yeah.
ability beyond.
yeah.
Women.
Women, they call it for the center.
I'll give you a copy.
I'll let Dan email everybody.
It would be great if that could go to.
I'll get it
Maybe
in
a
there.
list of, you're talking about those different grants and who they're from, that would be very
Okay.
interesting to see, like on the.
Okay, that's all United Way. They've been such a big support.
It's just really good to know that stuff, so if you could put just the list that
Okay,
you
I'll
read
do
from,
that.
that'd be awesome.
All right.
Megan, if you send it to me, I'll put it up.
Okay, thanks, Brad.
You want to give her the, should I give this one?
No, I'll just.
Electronic, it's more cleaner.
Yeah, so it's usually the same, it's 20,000. This year, or last fiscal year, we had the requests were about 36,000. So it keeps, going up, but some of the agencies are, don't assist this area. Beth, I know, had one for, like, in wetlands and stuff, so she took care of that, but the requests are getting larger, but we're sticking with it. I think we're sticking with the 20,000 for that.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank
Thank you,
you.
Thanks, Megan.
Megan, you're the best one.
Thank you, Ryan. Remember that next week, okay?
I have a short memory. I have a very short
He'll be
memory.
fine.
It'll be fine.
All right, I'd like to welcome Senior Center Director Lisa Plum. Lisa, thank you.
Thank you.
This is the 10th series. All right. Senior Center.
Okay, good evening. In the budget you received, I included a detailed description of the senior center timeline the past year. What I just handed out to you with our monthly newsletter is a quick snapshot of the senior center timeline. Due to the pandemic, the senior center closed in March 2020. It was reopened in October 2020, after being closed for 6 months. It closed again in December 2020. It reopened June 2021 and has remained open with most programs running. At first, members had to make a reservation to attend programs, so social distancing could be followed. Masks had to be worn. After a few weeks, masks were no longer required. In August 2021, a new Delta variant was announced. A mask mandate was put back in place. Congregate lunches began being served indoors. October 2021, guidelines suggested masks no longer had to be worn if a person was fully vaccinated. This was a relief to those members who did not want to exercise while wearing a mask. Our participation in programs and membership grew from the reopening in June until November. In December 2021, another new variant was announced, Omicron. The CDC recommendation shortened the isolation period for those having a positive COVID result. Positive COVID cases and hospitalization numbers in our area began to dramatically increase. Despite COVID-19 and 2 variants, the
Bethel Senior Center remained open. We've had 0 COVID cases reported to us as a result from anyone attending senior center classes. I attribute this to a bit of luck, but also a great deal of effort to keep our seniors healthy and safe. The class size was limited, social distancing was practiced, masks were worn. A strict sanitizing regimen was followed after each class. I'm proud that our center remained open despite a number of obstacles when other senior centers in our area were either not open, didn't offer classes, or didn't offer a variety of classes and trips as we had. In June 2021, after being closed for 6 months, members were excited to get back to the senior center. We had received a grant to offer a new class. It was so popular, I applied for a second grant and received it. I was able to offer 2 classes. In addition to those classes, I had 165 people on a waiting list. This is evidence to me that our members are looking forward to new classes and being with their peers. Many spent the last year isolated and because of it decreased their mental and physical activities. Many members were deconditioned, feeling poorly about themselves as they couldn't do what they did do a year ago. Many were fearful to go out and they felt isolated and lonely in their homes. Some had become forgetful, depressed, and ill. The staff noticed a dramatic and shocking decline in a number of our members when they came back to the center after being away for a year. All of these are reasons why the senior center is so important in our community. 2 years ago, the senior center's budget was increased by $10,000 to be able to offer new programs. Due to the pandemic, that money was not used. Last year, that money was taken out of the senior center budget. In July 2022, the new fiscal year, I respectfully ask that the $10,000 be restored to the senior center budget. This would allow me to offer new programs and be able to satisfy the needs of the senior citizens who we value so highly in our community. Thank you.
I just, revenue, Brad, what was the normal year in revenue?
I think we budgeted like 36.
I'm looking at, the base is 36. I'm gonna say the same thing I said to Megan, like you were talking about different grants and whatnot. Would you be able to put a list of those?
So this is one grant that
One
we
grant.
had for this class, but I can send that to you.
Yeah, do you often apply for grants?
No, no. Phyllis does, that's Phyllis Tansky, the human
Yeah,
resource
yeah.
person, she does the grants, but this one we applied for, and it was for a Tai Chi Chuan class, which was an evidence-based class to prevent falls for senior citizens.
From the
it
state of
was-
Connecticut?
It's actually a nationwide
Okay.
program. It was designed by the scientists out of Washington State and incorporates physical therapy and Tai Chi moves. Our program was very successful. We tested people before the program and after it was done, and 100% had improved their skills.
That's great. I always, love when people give us money.
Grants.
Yeah. So that's why I'm asking. So maybe there's some grants out there. I don't know.
We'll look into it.
Yeah.
And Lisa, how many users on a weekly basis or a yearly basis do you keep track of that, obviously?
We keep track of the participation. So on this timeline that I just handed out to you, the corner in the bottom right has all the participation for those months. So it steadily grew, but when the Omicron variant was announced, it dipped. The seniors were afraid to come out. The numbers were high in town, and the number high across Connecticut. So now people are coming out again. We're finding the numbers are dropping again, and people are coming out again. So they continued to climb, except when that variant came out, and then they dipped.
What were you pre-pandemic numbers,
Probably about, we get about 200 people a day, usually. 200 people a week.
So when you look at these numbers, this is the daily count, all month long, right?
Correct.
And you refer to everybody's members. Majority of these folks are actually members of the senior center.
They're members, they have to join up to be a member of the senior center. If they live in Bethel, it's free.
Yep.
If they're out of town, there's a fee,
What's the fee out of town?
$30.
Lisa, on the 10,000 that you requested, do you expect to recover the 10,000 in fees, or I know sometimes
I would say between 50 and 75%,
of that?
yes.
With respect to the majority of the programs, I've noticed that a lot of the programs are free. Most of the things are trips and things like that, they cost money. Do you end up breaking even on the trips and things like
The
that?
trips pay for themselves, if people go and pay for themselves, that doesn't affect the budget at all. Probably about half of the programs are free and half have a fee. This year, we started as a suggestion from the Board of Finance last year, suggested that the membership fee go up. They also suggested that the class fee go up. And so we did do that. The class fee across the board is $4. Before it was $2, $3, $4 for one class. Now all classes are $4.
Is there a lot of pushback with that?
There was actually no pushback from that, which was very surprising. And it's funny because the same yoga teacher teaches class across town for $18 to get into the class, and then you come here for $4.
So now it's 6.
So.
Sounds really like 7.
Ramping up till it says.
Who's running the drunk? I'm not sure. I'm good.
I'm good.
That's it, thank you guys.
Thank you, Lisa.
And we're,
Thank you.
All right, I'm up next. You guys want to move?
Yeah, yeah. I think we should. And we're gonna judge you like everybody else.
I just wondered if they were electrodes.
No, we got a dunking.
Brad, what is it, 10-100?
All right, this probably will be fast. The only thing in here is salary adjustments, and it looks a little bit uglier than it really is for a couple of reasons. Part of it is not ugly at all. This reflects the raise that this board afforded the first selectman's position last year, which I'm very appreciative of. And that is, one of the things we always have to do is make the position attractive enough for people to want to run for it. Because there's a lot of benefits that goes along with it too. So that was a good thing to do. The rest of this is a couple of minor salary adjustments to the internal staff that occurred last year. And then there were adjustments that are just on paper because I don't mean to throw Brad under the bus, but there were some things that didn't get moved over for wage contingency that are now.
He's been doing that all month.
Right. He's been moving.
So that's really it. Not looking for anything new at all. That's the story.
All right, thank you very much.
Not the best.
It wasn't on. You had a skirt, you might have got it. And we don't charge for this.
This is all free. Happens all day long.
You should worry less than it's done with your salary.
All right, next page.
28 minutes, Brad.
I said 23, actually. All right,
Good night, ladies.
next page. Thank you. Is treasurer. The only thing in there is the salary. Board of Finance sets it. If you don't like it, change it.
Being
Fastest one of the month. The next one is the Comptroller's office, 120. So before I start with that, I'd like to introduce the new assistant comptroller, or is now it's Sebi. Say
Does
hi.
he have a speaking part? Do you have something to say? Nothing?
Well, I volunteer here just so they have a time and say no. Thanks, yeah.
Just because you're happy to be here. That's right.
Yes, I
Happy to be here.
You can hear no.
Welcome to a great town.
So for the comptroller's office, I'm gonna start with the auditing. The auditor told me to anticipate an inflation raise. I said, I'm not putting in the rate of inflation, I put in 3%, because inflation is a little bit higher than that, I think now, but I think 3% reasonable.
For the auditing section,
Yeah.
right? Yep.
Yep. I increased the mileage expense and dues and education. Some of it's the dues and education for myself. We have Savvy, she's new. We're in the process of hiring a purchasing agent, which will lead us to the salaries at the top, which is lower. So it's the same thing that happened with the tax collector's office. The salaries go down for 2 new hires, but your dues and education and mileage go up.
But explain it the way you explained it to Nick and me, because there's
Yeah.
some movement in there.
Yeah, so we were looking at switching our payroll process to ADP. That is currently on pause because it wasn't done before budget season, and we gotta have it done. So my initial draft of this had money for ADP and the salaries. What's gonna happen is our office is supposed to be 5 people. Right now, we have 4. In 2 weeks, we have 3. And when we hire a new purchasing agent, we'll go back to 4. I'm not gonna fill that 5th position until we figure out whether or not ADP is gonna work.
How are they doing so far? 'Cause, yeah.
Not good.
No bueno.
I sent you some
Yeah.
stuff, you know, a
So-
lot of those
So
services.
right now, I'm just keeping the staff level flat. If ADP and I can get on the same page and we can get it up and running, my anticipation is the ADP cost will come at a salary, and maybe instead of 5 people, it'll be either 4 or 4 and some part-time help to fill in.
You guys know what he was thinking about doing 8, whatever
Yeah,
payroll
we're
service.
trying.
But they do it in-house as we speak right now, so.
That's what I was gonna ask if you bring in-house.
Yes.
Have you looked at other, I'm sure you looked at other companies. too.
We did, the other companies that we looked at, were more money, and, this is being recorded, so I gotta be careful what I say. ADP is a big name in payroll. I did not anticipate the problems we're having.
Yeah,
So,
Withholding taxes.
Yeah, so what's so different than, you know,
Tell
running?
the story that you told us, because it's
So-
pretty interesting.
my quick story on it is, so we've been running tests. I've been checking myself. One of the things that ADP didn't pick up is I have an additional towards my federal income tax. They've had the information for 3 months. It took me finding the fact that they didn't have it for them to go, oh. The other big thing is they were still off and they were arguing with me for 4 weeks. So finally they said, well, there's this button you could hit to deal with their income. So I'm married, like my spouse works. My thought is that should be default, because otherwise they would take in the whole standard deduction against me. Standard deduction is $25,000. Like if my wife worked for a company that treated it the same way, they would have thought her deduction would be 50,000. We would have gotten a really big tax bill at the end of the year. So that happened right before, then we got really crazy with the budget. So I backburnered it for the last 2-3 weeks. I have to get back into it and do a lot more testing. Unfortunately, with the problems we've had, it means my testing has to go through the roof, because it's payroll, it's gotta be right. So.
So you think payroll is 1 full employee? Where you're gonna
No,
keep,
he's saying that because they're using the service, that it would be,
Yeah, so
He-
if,
He wasn't gonna go back to 5.
that's what I mean, so that 1 person is responsible
Yeah.
for doing payroll.
so,
yeah,
yeah, so currently we have 1 person that their job is payroll. So if or when ADP gets up and running, that person's job will still be payroll. It'll just be less labor intensive, and then we can fill some of the other spots from our position that will be open. We'll just reallocate the workload. So we're not looking to lay anybody off, but because we have somebody retiring, there's an opening that we're just gonna keep open. And that means Debbie and I have to suck it up and get everything done with less people until, such is life.
Assuming ADP works out,
Yeah,
what is the change or the delta per year? Are you expecting to save some money?
yeah, my guess, and because they give you pricing, but it's until you're in there and you know how many people are actually. I was gonna budget $45,000 for ADP. The full-time position is rough number 660. So, and that's because currently the town pays weekly. Another savings would be at some point if we went bi-weekly. It wouldn't cut it in half, but it would be less. So.
And just town employees, not the school employees.
Just town, yeah.
It would be more with benefits, for that person.
Yes, there's also
So
benefits
it's-
associated to it.
It's the salary of the person plus their benefits, so it's probably $80,000.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So you say there's
So-
no benefits too.
So
Yeah.
if it is $45,000 for payroll service, you may not see a change in my budget if I keep some money for part-time to do some of the administrative stuff, filing and all that fun stuff. But on the employee benefits, to Rich's point, that would decrease.
Has anybody ever polled the town workers to see what bi-monthly payment would be like if it's very unpopular or a problem? Is that
so-
a thing?
We've been
I'm sure you gotta
negotiating,
negotiate.
Yeah.
we've been negotiating with the unions for years, and I think we can, we're.
So at this point in time, with all the unions, we have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
one, we are trying to get this up and running first. Two, you gotta do it the right way. We understand some of our people, you can go bi-weekly tomorrow and they went blank. Some people, when you live paycheck to paycheck, obviously it's the same amount of money, but when you get it every 2 weeks, that's a hardship for people. So you gotta look at doing it the right way. You gotta give enough notice.
Sure.
So, we didn't just get the ability to do it and go, haha, now we're doing it. It's gonna be a thought out process. You know, the town of Bethel's had weekly payroll since I'm sure 1855, you know, like, you know.
Yeah, you guys aren't right, actually, so.
No, not anymore. That ended 3 weeks ago. We're not far off.
We're accurate. Any questions from our side of the?
I'm here all week if you have.
I tried to chicken.
Yeah.
10160 is legal, that's our next stop.
150, you said?
160.
160.
This is one of your favorite films.
Yeah. Who gets paid this one?
All right, so you see two changes in professional services. I'm gonna start with the contract negotiator first. We have 4 contracts up this year that need to be negotiated. So we're probably gonna spend close to $50,000. You'll see the last year, prior year actual was close to that because we just finished some of these contracts because they take so long to do. And now you're doing them again.
But are you saying 50,000 for a labor attorney to
Yeah.
sit in on negotiation?
Yeah.
But we're not hiring a negotiator.
No. So we have a labor attorney.
Got it.
to review it. And then legal fees for members that have been on the board for a while. This is something we try to increase a little bit every year to try to get closer to the actual spend. The 5-year average is $255. You see there, I went to $230. You know, we're trying to just step up to it, you know. Realistically, this account should be closer to 300,000. But every year we're hopeful that it'll go down. But we're trying to get to where we need to be. It's the same thing with building maintenance. That's it. Any questions? Probate court. So probate court is up 2% to $118. Probate court is housed in Bethel. It is 4 towns, Newtown, Reading, and Ridgefield. The charges are spread across the 4 towns based on, I believe, population. We always wanted to be based on home values because we have Reading and Ridgefield in there, but we didn't go for it. So it's just a slight increase, but it's spread out. All right, next page is information technology. So last year, the Board of Finance, through the wage adjustment account, approved a part-time person in IT. So that person's been working since July. It's been a help, especially with everything going on, as more and more things have gone digital. And that's working out well. To be honest with you, we looked really hard at trying to increase it to full-time. There is a need for it. But we understand that last year we got it to part-time. You know, getting it to part-time and you see what that person can do, you see, yeah, it would be really helpful to have it full-time. We're not asking for it this year. At some point, I'm sure it'll come up, but we will do our best. Between 5206 and 5313, 5206, we barely use the equipment maintenance account. Most stuff gets charged contracted services. It's a house cleaning accounting thing on our end. So we moved 20,000 from equipment maintenance to contracted services. And contracted services is up $6,000. So in the IT contracted services is any contract that has anything to do with a computer for the town. The assessor software, the tax collector software, the building inspector software, town clerk software. So any software that this town runs.
So it's all license fees, like subscriptions and stuff.
Yeah. And there's always been some equipment maintenance stuff in there. That's why we just moved the money from equipment maintenance. you have to replace, so the town of Bethel owns like 100 desktops, I believe. Nick is probably listening, yelling at me the right number, but let's call it 100 desktops. You know, desktop, we get like 5 years out of them, you gotta replace 20 a year, $600 a pop, you know, like, it's all over email, all that stuff comes out of there. So, so yeah, so the salary line does look like a big jump, but most of that money was in wage adjustment last year. They're just now getting charged to IT.
Okay, so you're not asking for a full-time, this is
No,
from.
this
us,
is,
okay.
so yeah, so that was what was approved last year through the wage adjustment account.
The money's just on this account now, and it just
Correct.
looks like a big.
The professional services for the Board of Education, what exactly is that?
So the head IT person for the Board of Ed, he supervises our network administrator. So they work in the same office, they work together, so he supervises our IT. It's what we put in 12 years ago. And that's the system that we've had since then. So they work together on stuff.
Sure.
Isn't it apportioned? Is it split or does it?
No, it's,
It just comes out of-
it used to be $20,000 for 9 years. And a
Right,
couple years ago, I got bumped up to 25.
okay.
It's not a percentage of a salary. It's, I think it's treated as a stipend for that person for doing the work.
Is this a full-time IT person on this whole budget?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a contract?
No. So,
But years ago, there was a contractor doing it for the town and screwed everything up. And this was the best way to go. It was a lot cheaper.
Did we pay him? I just want to make sure we pay him.
Paid too much.
any other questions on IT? It's technically data processing until the charter changes. Town insurance. So this is the one that, and I'm sorry, Daleen, I don't have a new sheet for you, but it is updated in OpenGov. This one changed. As I was going through some of the insurance stuff with our insurance broker, we noticed that we could bring this down. So we did, you know. So it's down to 65,000. Property and liability insurance is up 5,000. Our main property and liability insurance is flat. Our insurance carrier is keeping it flat. The increase is some of the supplement insurances that, like, we carry flood insurance, cyber insurance is the big one that we just spent a ton of time and money on, but that's huge right now, and necessary. So,
Fred, I have a question.
yes,
Does this include like dam insurance and stuff?
yeah,
Does that get pushed back to public utilities?
so a portion of our property and liability gets charged off the water. So
Okay.
this is just the town portion.
Okay, oh,
So-
this is the town portion.
Yeah.
All right.
If it was like flood insurance for water building specific, then we would charge that to water specifically, but the water and sewer would get charged a percentage of the.
I was hoping it was gonna reduce it.
It does, it would be a much bigger number.
That'd be a bigger number.
10,340.
Town boards and commissions.
Yeah, I just can't flip my page, all right. Town boards and commissions, so I got kind of aggressive this year and cut the $150 out of ad hoc building committee that I don't think we've spent in the last 3 or 4 years that we've had it in there. I was feeling kind of crazy that day, so I cut it. The ad this year is the charter revision. As we're aware, at some point we have to redo the charter revision. Yes, Brian?
You
Sorry.
still haven't voted on the last charter.
Yeah,
Right, so what else?
You're allowed to have the charter, but you just didn't act on it? Is that kind of what happened?
No, what happened was, we were nearing the end of the charter revision process. And there was we're trying to think of, I guess the ones don't have, there was the meeting in which the charter commission presented to the board of selectmen. presented their findings. The next meeting, we accepted those findings, and then from that point to the next point there, I mean, from that point on, we had 30 days to have a public hearing. And that's when the world shut down for COVID, and we missed the date. Could not have a public hearing because the government closed those. So I worked with the governor's office for, with the staff, with Doug Delana, you probably know him, and some of the attorneys up there. I almost convinced them to issue a special order, a special executive order to just say, if any town got caught like this, we'll give you an extra 30 days or something. But then the world started opening back up, and the legislature started pushing back, and he backed off. So basically, the charter, we can pay, I don't think it would even cost $20,000 to pick it up, because we could just reconstitute a commission, give them the report, it was all done, and say, well, if you guys want to do anything else, now's your chance, but it's all ready to go.
So it's just a calendar thing, you're saying? It was just a calendar thing, you're saying?
Yes.
Well, it was a COVID calendar.
Yeah, so the last meeting of the Charter Committee Revision Committee, I just looked it up, was February 27th of 2020.
Yeah.
So.
And you just have to review it every 3 years?
Five.
Every 5, so, and that sounds reasonable to just give them a report, just read some of it.
Some of it, don't you have to have a certain number of public hearings? A lot of the cost is in the public notice.
Right, but that,
Yeah.
just pick it up from there and
Yeah.
forward.
You'd have to do the whole thing all over again, have a public hearings and notices.
Yes, of course, I'm just saying just for the commission itself.
Yeah.
Just review.
You can compress the timeline.
Yes.
You know what you're working with.
But why does that, well, here's totally restarting. The charter commission is the same group of people, or does it require?
No, we have to, that expired, and
It is.
I actually pulled, some months ago, I pulled the former commission that did that work and asked if they wanted to just get reappointed and do it again, but 2 of them said, no, I don't want to do it. So-
And you want to get the band back together.
I don't think I was asked, but I would.
Well, and once I hit 2 no's.
Maybe he could chair it. What is the legal notices to do that, right?
Sounds like it,
Well,
right?
the legal notices are what's expensive about it.
How many legal notices do we need if we're just gonna hand what we already did and never voted?
No, you have to have public hearings.
Yeah.
Technically.
So technically, it's a restart,
Yeah,
because the other one
It
wasn't
cost
done.
20,000 the whole time public hearing?
well, that includes the legal fee too. Because you have to have a.
Doesn't Marty already charge us 200?
No.
No, you have a separate charter to look at.
Special.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna- So when everything went south in COVID, somewhere in that acceptance by the board of selectmen, it says that it's only good for 30 days. You don't do the public hearing in 30 days.
No, that's state law. If you look under charter commissions,
Yeah.
so that it goes on forever, but that's one of the stipulations, is that once it's accepted, you must have a public hearing within 30 days. And there's 3 deadlines built into it. If you miss any of them, it's dead. I mean, it just expires.
I guess my point is, though, if you were happy with it, the charter commission was happy with it, how much would it really cost to give it back to them? Say, this is what
Do
we
your
want to
public
do,
hearing.
do your public hearing.
Probably half.
It would be all new people though, you'd be reappointing
Yeah.
people.
Can I chime in? Just on the process?
I was the previous chair of the commission, so.
It's, the process is the process, and I'll let us do. So from the floor, anything can be introduced. And none of the volunteers have the legal capacity to weigh in on any of the potential charter changes introduced by the public. So even though we've already assessed the ones that went through the last charter revision, when you start again from scratch, SMB comes with a list every time. We have to go through each of those and we have to vet it through our lawyers. So it's not just as simple as saying, this is what we agreed about last time, let's expedite it. We have to hear from the public and give multiple opportunities for them to weigh in.
And I have to agree with that, because we also have, new leadership. You're gonna have a new charter commission.
Yeah, they have to do
brand new
like a whole
selectmen.
new.
You do have, I think, so we start.
You would have to assume it's gonna be the full.
How much did we spend last time?
It was split between 2 years, so we spent 6 and 7, so like 13. Some of it, so you could cut it. Some of it is anything news time's gone through the roof.
I know.
We used to be able to post a job listing for under $1,000. Our last one was almost $3,000. so we're not posting job listings in the News Times anymore, but it's crazy.
But there may be savings to that, considering state statute, because that was changed with some of the COVID rules to be able to be digital. So that could fix one of our biggest concerns.
Yeah. So if you want to cut it in half, cut it in half. Once you get,
five, but if you say cut it in half, that's gonna be my motion.
Once it-
Thank you, Brad.
once it starts.
Hold on, let me write Brad. I'll remind you.
Yeah, it's fine. Once it starts, it's gonna cost what it costs, but like, maybe you're right, maybe we can do it for 10 now.
Well, some of those executive orders that allowed you to post it on the websites in different places, that's gonna change because the accessibility is different.
Well,
I mean, I'm so sick of the News Times, honestly.
we hope that the legislature codes some of those.
Yes, it would be
All your
wise.
friends at the
I
state,
know.
Not good for the News Times, but.
Sounds good, Brad. Good job.
maybe 7,500 Brad.
I'm sticking with
Yeah.
10. I'm sticking with 10.
You already decided.
I'm sticking with 10. That was
He's a
good one.
banker now.
That's right.
And it's got Bluetooth, I don't know if you heard.
Yeah.
In his
You want me to call you? Tell everyone I know.
Yeah.
Push the buttons. Pulled Siri to make a phone call for you. It was amazing.
All right,
This is coming from a.
I hate it.
Right.
he's now he's just talking to blow my timeline. It told him 43 minutes.
Brad, I got bad news for you. You blew that 5 minutes.
I know. I get chatty. Employee benefits. FICA is based on anticipated salaries, so that's why it's up 34,000. So the $50,000 increase in the building inspector account is factored in that. If you look at OpenGov and look at the itemization, I did break out current salaries versus proposed increases. So that would get adjusted if any of those salaries get changed. But otherwise, that is what it is, 7.65%. Hospitalization is up $80,000. So right now, the state's looking at an 8% increase in the cost of health insurance. So they just released the 8 the other day. They were talking 8, then they're talking 7. Usually it goes down when it's closest. Right now, this number represents 6%.
Board of Ed got a letter 3 weeks ago, said it's 10%.
Yeah, so the number they're using is 8 at this point. They had a meeting
Is
tonight.
that
Okay.
a statement of our mission?
Okay.
Yes,
So both the Board of Ed and.
It's from
The
the state.
same
But-
consultant.
No, I was on it for years,
Yeah.
but, so they're able to do it by group.
Yeah.
So like if the Board of Ed had a higher hospitalization rate, they would get a higher rate than you, or is
No.
it based on?
so it's, right now, the only differentiation is regional. So they added regional a couple years ago, which
Yeah.
So
Bethel's
you get group then with.
So Bethel's Fairfield County, so
Yeah.
doctors are more expensive. So we got a Fairfield County tax on top of this.
But it's a point of service one.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think at the end of the day, we might be okay with the 6. Yeah, it's like a $20,000-$30,000 if they stick with the 8. So,
That's another invitation for you to make a motion to cut. We just-
no, I'm saying,
I don't cut none of this. That's
you know.
dangerous, that's a dangerous.
I'm
thing.
yeah, I'm saying this number should be $20,000 to $30,000 higher. And maybe to my own benefit I'm sticking with my 6. I put it in there.
You think
We'll
that's
see.
what's gonna settle out?
We'll see.
Yeah.
You
We'll
have
see.
Brad, you self-insure on the one delivery?
We self-insure on a buy, yes.
You
What
self-insure on
what
one.
was your question, Rich?
You'll have a better idea in the future, or?
Yeah, but by the time we do public hearings and stuff like that, we also have 4 unions we negotiate this year. Usually we do look for increases in premium cost share, which would bring this down. So,
So Brad, I want to commend you because this is the first time that I've been involved with the Board of Finance 6 years, 7 years before this, that you've actually hedged lower and will probably come in at the actual number compared to what we've dealt with in years past. So I think that's a credit.
can
to
you
and-
write that down in case I swing and miss on this class?
I can make.
I'm sorry, what? I don't remember that.
Long-term memory, short-term
I told you a
memory.
whole lot about your dicks, Brad.
That's what this is all recorded on too.
I can make up a certificate.
You know, Brian, we might need that extra 10 in charter just in case for you.
for later.
I I know it's an issue when the Board of Ed, what's in your book right now, I think is going up by the Board of Ed once they got the letter. They have a lot more employees than us, so they have to adjust to 8, because I think they're talking like $160,000. That's a big, like, if I swing and miss on the percentage, if we're talking 20, 30 grand, we'll figure it out.
That's fair. We got it.
I try to be conservative in a lot of spots, be aggressive. when
Now,
I
how
can.
do you have to fact, because I know the difference when someone retires and you pay their insurance, the plan goes way up. How does that,
So
it does significantly.
it depends. If they qualify for Medicare, then they switch to a Medicare Advantage plan that's also through the state, and that's a lot less money. So, and it depends on the employee. Some people have post-retirement insurance, some
It
people don't.
depends on the bargaining unit.
Yeah,
So if you get post-employment insurance and you're under 65, your fees go up dramatically, right? 20-30%.
yeah, it's the way the partnership plan's working with us, Brian, it's not. It just, the rate
Oh.
stays the same, yeah. If you're not, there are some categories in there, but we don't fall into that luckily. So,
Yeah.
police and employee pension. So I'll start with the police, because that was easier. It's actuary determined contribution. It's what the actuaries say that we contribute to make our needs. This town, we're gonna do everything we can to always make our contributions, because otherwise it's bad. The employee pension side, this is, the actuary determined contribution is actually down a little bit. But what's happened over the years as we've negotiated out pensions for new hires, your short-term costs go up. Because your pensions are long-term costs. And if you switch to somebody to, I'll call it a 401k, so you gotta pay it up front. Like that person gets that every week, they get that portion into their 401k account. So in the short term, it actually costs you more money. But in the long run, it's cheaper because you pay as you go instead of this long-term liability. And some of this increase is not only the town side, the Board of Ed, non-teachers, admins, all their new hires are falling the same, and the town pays for all non-teachers and admins, the pension costs and retirement costs. It's been that way forever, and we carry it on our side. Unemployment, we self-insure. It was $45,000 this last year. We're hoping it's nothing. But usually if you have unemployment, you're also not paying somebody. So there's makeup for it there. So. Any questions on employee benefits? Intergovernmental agency. So the first increase is cost, which is Council of Small Towns. We still are a small town, but because of our population increase, it's based on your population, the fees increased by $350. They kept the fees flat, but we fell into a new bucket. The Heart Bus is, they send us every year what our fees for the year are. They increased the Heart Bus by $1,000 or 2%, and they held the Sweetheart flat. Council of Elected Officials, the fees went up $92 this year. The big account in here is the paramedic intercept. We were able to, at fiscal year end, when we did the transfers, to put in the extra $100,000 because we had a decent year with our expenses. So I kept the yearly funding at the $300,000. Hopefully, if this year ends well, we can keep cutting into the debt that paramedic owes us. It's the service part of that, what we provide with the ambulances. Sorry, not the paramedics. Any questions on 405? Utilities. Gasoline, we held flat at this point. Our contract is up soon. We need to get new pricing. We're hoping that flat will be fine. It may come down a little, it may go up a little, until we get the new contract pricing for the year. We're not really sure. Our early estimates from the company is, I think we're gonna be okay staying at the 171. the fuel oil, the town of Bethel general fund no longer has any buildings that run on fuel oil. Technically, we still own the police station that runs on fuel or heating oil, but it's winterized. So that's that decrease. Utilities is up $191,000, which is a big jump. If you look at prior year actual, the 2.3, we're only up $60,000 off of that. What's happened with this account, we put in we did all the energy savings, we did the solar, which is great, and it's saving us money. The energy program that we did, we still have to pay the loan. So the $4 million program, we pay like $300,000 on the loan. And the other piece is when we signed our latest electric contract and we locked it up for 5 years, so we could try to have some budget stability, is we were getting a really good rate because we signed that previous contract 4 years before then. So you kind of go flat for a while. The market rate usually goes up on it, so you have a jump and then you're flat for a while. We do try to lock it up if we can lock it up at what we think is a fair price, just so this account's not jumping all over the place every year.
Brad, the 300,000, is it in that number?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Payments on that equipment?
Yeah,
Who do you use for your
Constellation.
Constellation, that's
Yeah.
all your contracts?
Yep, for our energy. Sorry, for our electric. Energy is too generic.
Where's gas in there?
Gas is in there too.
In the utilities?
Yeah, natural gas is in there.
Right,
Yeah.
natural gas.
So what's in that account, you got electric, natural gas, phones, you have, internet costs in there. The electric is like $1 million of it, 300,000 of it is the loan for all the LED and all the boilers that we got in that $4 million project. So
How many year loan is that?
I think it's 15. Yeah,
Amoresco, that was. 15.
yeah, Amoresco. What was that, like 5 years ago?
Yeah.
5
5 years.
So in 10 years, will the equipment still be viable, or we're gonna have to do another loan?
Some will, some won't. It depends, like they did some boilers. So hopefully the boilers last more than the 15 years. Yeah, so I think the payback that we were supposed to have was like 8 years to make up in savings. So,
Keeping track of it to see if it works out.
well, Amoresco has to as part of their contract.
Yeah, they have to guarantee it.
So,
Sounds good.
any other questions on utilities?
Well, if I read further down, I would have saw it.
Miscellaneous charges and transfers. So before I talk about the wage adjustment account, I would like to bring up the capital non-recurring funding. As part of the year-end transfers, we did the $100,000 for the paramedic. We were able to put an extra $400,000 into this. That's why I see the prior year actual at the $1 million. My personal belief is the 650 number should be higher. But it is, I think what we've done lately has been great. We haven't, other than the schools, we haven't had to bond any trucks. We haven't had to do any of that stuff. I think that is a best practice. And I think this account should be closer to $1 million a year. But at this time, I'm not looking to increase it. I understand that it's a big ask to try to increase it.
But right now, also there's some flexibility with the general fund. So my question is, capital non-recurring is all gonna be for town improvements, so
Yeah.
the ratings people won't care. So couldn't you put some, the money from the general fund into that account? Can you just transfer that money?
You can, you're better off just funding projects through your fund balance instead of just taking a chunk of money, unless you do it in your year-end transfers. Instead of just taking $1 million and putting it in there,
Yeah, we have some.
you have to it's better if you go out and say, all right, we're gonna spend that $1 million instead of out of capital non-recurring. We're gonna use fund
I
balance
understand
for
what
it.
you're saying,
Yeah.
but right now, because of the timing, at some point, you're gonna have the right balance.
Yeah.
That's all, that's the reason that's. Mr. Tarsnell?
So I understand the importance of capital. I'm gonna respectfully disagree on the $1 million number, because every year we transfer so much money into our general fund.
Yeah.
It's not hard to say when we know what the transfer is, these are projects. It's no different than a sinking fund, it's just we're not transferring as much into our general fund.
Yeah.
So rather than, increase this budget by another 350,000, because we're not decreasing the budget on other ends. So really, we're increasing taxes on people when we're still putting money into our general fund.
It's
My
almost
point is, I'd like, I'd like to see more, and I'm fine if you say, look, we're at 650 now, I know, you keep it there, I'm not asking to decrease it. But what I would say is at the end of the year is when you look at how much is going to the general fund and pay for some things.
Yeah.
And that would be my feeling.
Yeah, so one of the
Reason
reasons,
is spending that down.
Well, no, spend the 650 down, I have no issue with that.
Right.
What I'm saying is,
No.
don't increase this to $1 million every year.
And
Because we're putting
Right.
so much money at the end of the year in to our general fund.
Right.
I mean, what's an average year for us, 1.2 million?
So, Brian, I don't think they understand it. There's, when all the accounts are all finalized, there's always a number, and then we decide where to put it, and we normally put it in the general fund.
So there's
That's
normally like a
great
million to
knowledge.
1.2 million. Because don't forget, we have to assume a lower tax collection rate, so we're never in trouble. I think you said you're
98.7.
98, even though we're closer to 99, whatever, but they do that so they never have a shortfall.
Yeah.
So, okay. But what I'm saying
Well,
is,
yeah.
thank you for helping prove my point. That's unusual. You can agree with me, so thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we're getting that gold stars all night here.
So Brian, to your point, that's one of the reasons I'm not looking to increase to 650. Obviously, it's up to the boards, but in the initial request here is because one of the things that I think we have to tackle after the budget's done is we have to update our fund balance policy. So the town of Bethel will finish 2021 fiscal year with 23% in our fund balance percentage. So what we need to do is come up with a new fund balance policy that keeps us between 18 and 20 and then what we need to do is figure out what we do, what happens if we go above 20. And some of that is funding capital stuff and there's a bunch of different things you could do.
You could do a sinking fund, right? Where
Yeah.
you transfer the money over into a similar thing like this, but it's done at the end of the year.
Right.
So, and if you do it through your, like a fund balance policy, and you follow that policy, the rating agencies go, they're doing exactly what they said they were gonna do. So that's why we're looking at that. So that should be something that's coming to the board of selectmen, and then we go to the board of finance.
And then that account would be like earmarked for something,
So you could, well, I do want to, Brad and I have been talking for a while, you guys remember, Cynthia, you remember some years ago, we talked about a mill rate stabilization policy. Because we could take some
I
of
thought
the,
you called it a tax stabilization.
yeah, but that's what it would be, that's what it would do, and then there was a lot of discussion about that, but it turns out that the bond rating agencies do favor that kind of policy. It has to be very tight, but it's also something, to Brian's point, that you can set aside, so you don't have big jumps in your tax rate.
I
You
thought
can
it was a
set
great
aside-
idea, Matt, a few times.
What's that?
I thought it was a great idea, and I told you that.
Yep.
So-
A few times
So
already.
we're working on new language for that.
Yeah, so,
It's not gonna happen this.
No.
yeah.
It's different than buying houses.
Yeah.
No, that's, yes.
For the
Yeah.
money, you're careful.
Because there,
No.
there are towns that every year take some of their excess from the prior year and apply it as revenue for the next year. Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you've been doing that, instead of doing that for 20 years, the rating agencies go, it's just part of your policy, or if you have a good policy that says that's what you're doing with it. One of the things that Matt and I were talking about with it, what I'd like to see is if we start funding this like mill rate stabilization or tax stabilization, whatever the policy you write on it, is you always keep at least 3 years. Say we're gonna use 300,000, or you have $1 million in there, you take $333,000 the first year to stabilize your mill rate. So you know that even if you can't put anything in it the next year, you have money, so you're not going up and down with it. It's not gonna work as a mill rate stabilization if you're jumping around still.
Yeah,
So,
It's if you have a bad year, you're not hit with a
right.
giant wall and cliff that you're falling
Yeah.
off.
yeah, so,
Sounds good, Brad.
Yes.
so the
That's
other
why,
thing,
that's why they hired you.
so the other thing.
Who hired
You guys.
Oh,
We did.
no, I don't think we hired her,
Well,
right,
we-
Matt?
Oh, I forgot, wait a minute.
Yeah,
We're the selectmen.
discussion will be-
Wait, 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 wait.
Now, here we go.
We're the selectmen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm not Brad didn't say much the other night.
I agree with that.
We're doing so well. I know, we're doing so well.
I want to hear that.
I'm not taking this.
When there's an open, you gotta just go in.
I should have got out of here in 23 minutes. No comment. So the other thing in miscellaneous charges and transfers is the wage adjustment account. There's 4 unions up, one is the library, so their adjustments are in the library budget, because it has to go there pretty much. So the 3 unions up are Public Works, Police, and Clerical Union. The only contract that's not up June 30th, 22 is dispatch. So you won't see like when the departments were showing their accounts, they weren't huge salary increases because it's in here.
It's in here.
The other thing you'll see in here is fiscal year 23 we pay weekly, has 53 pays. So that's like $160,000 is that 53rd pay. It happens every 6 years.
Matt, they're normally a 5-year contract you negotiate with?
Usually 3.
Just 3.
Yeah.
Usually 3. The police, we were so far over on the police, the last one was tough.
Expired.
We made it a 4-year contract, so we weren't right back at the same time.
Yeah.
So it had no retroaction, but typically they're 3.
Any questions on 420? All right, so this one's towards the end, 5440.
What's the part?
Debt service. So if you could switch the page below it, after it, the color with the graph in it, I think that's an easier way to look at this. So the town of Bethel has what we call the debt service fund. It's an account that's outside of the general fund, and over the last number of years, it's grown to $3.7 million. One of the reasons that it's grown is we knew that big school projects were coming on. So that's why we hadn't used some of it earlier. School projects are wrapping up. My plan, and if the board agrees with me, is to start using this. So if we didn't use any of this debt service fund to pay some of our debt service in the coming year, we would need to budget $6.8 million, which is $1 million increase from the current year. So if we use some of it, the 1.3 that I'm proposing, it'll drop by 326,000. And then it allows us to use some the following years. The following years, you'll see in the use of debt service fund column there, my plan for it, to try to stabilize the not the mill right now, I'm talking about it. Stabilize the debt service fund. As you'll see in the chart, red is what I'm proposing. Blue is what happens if we just go, we're just gonna pay our debt from the general fund as we need to and not use any of this $3.7 million. It has to be used for debt, so it's a good use of it.
This is assuming though the town doesn't take on any more debt.
Correct. So
We'd have to say,
Yeah.
there's no capital projects on the horizon.
But typically, if there was another project starting, there'd be contingency money that would help that, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of?
But it would have to be better. You gotta look, who cares about it? You gotta look, this is assuming no new debt.
Correct.
That's what you gotta look at.
You mean the debt, but I'm just trying to get
The red,
back.
right, yeah.
I would say that the only project we have coming up is the final outfit of the police station fire range. We have fund balance to cover it. So there's, everything else that's coming up is probably gonna be our.
It's less than $1 million, basically.
Yes, yes.
How many years are you going to
What?
We have no new projects coming up through
Right.
2029.
Yeah, I was at the similar, I thought we were doing a firehouse.
It's not through 2029.
2029.
Cause this goes out to
Probably
2029.
So
I mean,
I don't, yeah.
And I know we've been joking, my only concern is great plan if we take on no new debt.
So can I,
Go ahead.
let me speak a little bit of that. So one of the reasons my initial draft of this was more aggressive, and in 2029, we were left with $0 in this account. I left $600,000 in there. So why I left $600,000 in there? One, if we had to take on new debt, it could slow some of this, so we're not dropping, or if, we don't have it, right now, we don't have anything that we plan on bonding. That probably will change between now and 2029. So I think every year, we need to update this plan. But looking at this first year, I think this is what we can do to help the taxpayers, so we don't have, like,
What's our total outstanding debt right now, Brad? Both long-term,
I'd have to get it to you.
80 million?
The schools were 40, rough number, probably like 35, the schools, we did another 15, 50. Yeah, I can tell you actually in a minute, instead of guessing. It's probably closer to 60 million, Brian, for the general fund.
That's long-term debt.
Yeah,
And we have no short-term debt right now.
correct.
Why we hired you, we feel comfortable with the plan, that's,
Some of the things is,
financial expert.
You guys know what this is all about, right? This is mortgage payments on stuff you own?
it's aggressive without being too aggressive, is the way I kind of looked at it.
It doesn't do anything in terms of lowering the duration, because I'm assuming we're at 20 years. with most of
They're all
our-
locked in. Yeah.
20 years, right?
Yeah. So what it does, in 2023, we have a 2010 refunding that we did, that we owe $538,000 of it. Instead of paying from the general fund for that, I propose we use some of this for it. So then that one drops off. So every year, well, in 23 is the last year for the 2010 refunding. The 2014 bonds that we did, and 2025. So we did those for 10 years. That drops off. So that's we had that dropping off anyway. We're just speeding it up. Really.
I think with all the money we spent recently, I think you have to have a plan. I mean,
The other,
you were looking at it, because again, normally 5.5 million, but this year happened to be 6.7 or 8, I think.
And next
So
year
it's gonna be $1
next
million
year's the
increase.
worst, right? When we see
23 is the worst.
23 is the worst year when we see the real big
Yeah.
increase from
Yeah.
all the.
And that's the budget.
if we don't have this plan, it would be up.
Yeah.
So the other thing so with that 600,000 left in there, assuming we don't add any new debt, this 600 should go up. Yeah. So the 600 should go up whenever we finish the schools and the state comes in and audits it, and that goes well, knock on wood, and they approve everything. And this will probably go up by more when we get the final payments from the school renovation. So that's why I'm okay with being semi-aggressive with some of it, is I anticipate that amount going up a little bit.
Do you feel, and I guess we can talk to the Board of Ed about it in terms of, do they have any more renovation plans?
What's left? I mean.
Well, the middle school will be coming up next.
school, 25 years old.
We just built the damn thing.
Right. Yeah, Richie, didn't you just sign off on it?
All I'm saying is, the town may say we don't have anything, but I think we need to be careful and speak to the Board of Ed and find out what their long-term capital.
Well, with everything that was just spent, I think 5, 6, 7 years is probably reasonable to think there's nothing on the
Yeah,
horizon.
there
Yeah.
is. I have a rule of thumb. This is unofficial. The unofficial, if you go back through the minutes for any big project, like renovating Barry, renovating a high school, any of them.
It started 5 years
Count
ago.
backwards
Yeah.
to the first time you can find a mention of it in the meeting minutes,
5 years.
it's 20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
Is this your new campaign speech? I mean, are you announcing?
Somebody has signed.
No, so what I'm saying is, there's not a whisper of anything that, like, really everything, you go back, look at the police station.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's totally fair. Then you hear it.
Yeah.
You start on the street, that this is coming. The committee has been formed.
Yeah, it takes 10 years to even get to the point where you start talking about it seriously, but right now, there's really nothing out there. I mean, we've already replaced.
Brian, write that down too.
Yeah, okay, this is being recorded. We know this is being
So,
recorded.
I've been trying for 15 years to get this building renovated upstairs.
I was just gonna say, then we talk about.
That's 13 years.
No, they're still looking at change things.
Well, so it's like,
5 years.
yeah.
Hey, oh, so you got me.
Oh, they wanted to do all kinds of things. Yeah, we say,
So-
yeah, no.
But to your point, Brian, is even if, say, they started talking about it today, the town approved it in a year, by the time you do short-term debt a couple times before you roll it, you're probably looking 4 or 5 years until, you start making the
If
payment.
you're comfortable, I'm comfortable. That's why they put you in as the controller, not me.
And I'm much more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I am.
Um,
I'm not looking for your job.
And no, I don't want to work for you as a person.
Come on.
He doesn't have Bluetooth in his car, so.
So then, I went long, but any other questions on debt?
Nope. Good job.
Best of the night?
Best of the night,
yeah.
Todd, and
Because you're the
you're
last,
money man,
you are the
you're
best.
Well, look how many accounts.
I know, you knocked down $10 million of them.
Who else cutting the count by $1.4 million or $1.3 million?
You may exit the stage at this time.
See what the total budget.
All right, our next meeting is Tuesday, correct, Ian? All right.
Tuesday we meet, 7.
Tuesday, 7 o'clock.
Make that motion.
And what's on the agenda
On your
for
people.
Tuesday?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the board of selectmen. Second. All in favor?
That a motion to adjourn? Board of
Brian.
Finance? All in favor of adjourning, okay, okay.
After fiscal year 22, our outstanding principal is $64,570.
Yeah, no.
65, no, yeah, 6, not bad. 65 going back up.
That's great.
Yeah, we gotta write everything down again, guys.
Yeah.
That's.